उसके बाद डॉक्टर बोलता है कि आपको नागपुर में इलाज कराना पड़ेगा, आपके बच्चे की किडनी खराब हो चुकी है।
क्या कहेंगे?
4-5 दिन जब तक उसको वाटर डायलिसिस चला तब तक उसने बातें की और उसके शब्द बस यही थे कि पापा अब घर ले चलो। उससे सहन नहीं हो रहा था।
ये हमारी तकलीफ हम जानते हैं सर कि हमारे साथ क्या बीत रही है।
A crying child, a bad cough, a fever, a cough syrup prescribed by a doctor. The health of the child worsens. The child is unable to pass urine. His kidney failure, and then there is death. That is how a cough syrup took the lives of 24 children in India in the last 2 weeks. It is hailed as the pharmacy to the world, but it carries the blot of also being the hub of manufacturing medicines that have killed children at home in India and outside. 24 children have died in the horrific Cold Reef cough syrup tragedy, the youngest victim being just 8 months old. Madhya Pradesh's Cold Reef tragedy was not the first, and it won't be the last. In 2019 and 2020, the same time as COVID struck us, Jammu and Kashmir saw manslaughter of 12 children. The reason? Adulterated cough syrup, manufactured by Digital Vision. A look at the website of the company in question shows that it is ISO and GMP certified, which means it has good manufacturing practices. A claim that is no less than a slap on the face of the parents of young children who died in Udhampur in Jammu and Kashmir in this man-made tragedy. Srisan Pharma, the latest pharmaceutical company in news for all the wrong reasons, is the company that the Union Health Ministry said had no information about.
This exact plant where the cold reef syrup is being manufactured. In fact, Tamil Nadu's drug inspection unit also found over 350 violations, from the absence of air handling units and ventilation to rusted equipment and products stored in dusty corridors. I just want to show you the design and the layout of this particular plant. Just take a look at how unhygienic this whole area is. It's completely ill-maintained, not given attention to at all. Just the kind of unhygienic atmosphere that we are reporting from. In fact, as I report, I can actually feel and smell the stench that's emanating out of this place. Over here to store chemicals, where it's very clearly written that this container should be placed in a clean, cold place away from direct sunlight. And yet, this container is placed directly under the sun.
It is online presence which is far from inspiring. Its offline presence sends a chill down our spines. So horrific are the conditions in which these medicines are manufactured. The drug manufacturing company has not one, but over 300 violations. The question here, how is it possible that it went unnoticed? We only woke up after the manslaughter, and that is the reality.
रिमोट एरिया में जो ये सब स्टैंडर्ड ड्रग पहनते हैं, ये एक सिंडिकेट है। मैंने कहा पूरा मतलब सेंट्रल लेवल पे, फिर स्टेट लेवल पे, फिर मैन्युफैक्चरर, सप्लाई एंड यस फार्मा और ड्रग का डॉक्टर्स का एक नेक्सस है ही वहाँ पे। जस्ट टू कट द एक्सपेंसेस, दीज मैन्युफैक्चरर्स दे यूज सब स्टैंडर्ड ड्रग्स मटेरियल एंड टू मेक इट। तो कैसे उनके पास पहुँचती है? इस सिंडिकेट का पूरा ऊपर से लेवल तक फेक इनवाइसेस, फेक लाइसेंस, फेक पेपर्स होते हैं, और उनको उस तरह से यूज़ करके इनको प्रोपेल किया जाता है डॉक्टर्स को इसको लिखने के लिए, और पेशेंट को भी इस तरह से दिया जाता है। तो यही पूरा करप्शन का है, और रेगुलेटरी फ्रेमवर्क हमारा जो है वो फेल्योर है।
It is essential to go back and have interstate commerce regulated with joint licensing by state and center, number one. Number two, to ensure that by that it won't just be licensing, it will mean that the standard for keeping one batch, keeping batch by batch, you might say the numbers available so that recall is possible. After all, a medicine is sold in 5 or 10 different states. How can you be policing 5 and 10 different states if you don't have documentation? I would have recommended pass an ordinance. Nothing is more important than the lives of defenseless citizens and children. And an ordinance to bring interstate commerce and bringing drugs which are going in interstate commerce under joint licensing and joint regulation, and it's possible.
At the heart of toxic syrup deaths in India and outside is DEG contamination. Diethylene Glycol and Ethylene Glycol, which is DEG and EG, are actually colorless industrial chemicals used in manufacturing brake fluids, antifreeze paints, plastics and certain household items. However, they have no role, absolutely none, in medicines intended for human use. Propylene glycol is a safer pharmaceutical grade solvent usually used to dissolve active ingredients in cough syrups. However, because DEG and EG are cheaper, some manufacturers illegally use them as a substitute for PG, propylene glycol, to reduce production cost. Once ingested, DEG is metabolized in the liver into toxic compounds such as oxalic acid, which forms sharp crystals that then deposit in the kidney and cause rapid kidney failure.
जो ये कफ सिरप बनते हैं उसमें एक फार्मास्यूटिकल सॉल्वेंट यूज़ किया जाता है जो कि ग्लिसरीन है या प्रोपिलीन ग्लाइकॉल है। ये फार्मास्यूटिकल सॉल्वेंट हर कफ में सिरप बनाने में यूज़ किया जाता है, लेकिन पैसा बचाने के लिए, एक्सपेंसेस को कट करने के लिए ये इंडस्ट्रियल सॉल्वेंट का यूज़ करने लगती हैं छोटी मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कंपनियां, जिसमें डाईइथिलीन ग्लाइकॉल और इथिलीन ग्लाइकॉल का कंटामिनेशन हो जाता है।
And then there is also another problem of over prescribing these medicines and mixing combinations.
4 कॉम्बिनेशन जो बहुत है कि एंटीटसिव हुआ, डीकंजेस्टेंट हुआ, म्यूकोलाइटिक हुआ, तो ये 4 कॉम्बिनेशन के ड्रग्स को बेचा जाता है कि आपको ये सारे आपकी खांसी को भी कम कर देंगे, सर्दी को भी कम कर देंगे, और जो बलगम आ रहा है या स्पूटम आ रहा है उसको भी कम कर देंगे। पर रियलिटी में ऐसा नहीं होता है। जैसे कहा जाएगा कि डीकंजेस्टेंट आपकी नाक को ड्राई कर देगा, और म्यूकोलाइटिड आपके स्पूटम बलगम को घोल देगा, और एंटीटसिव कफ को ख़त्म कर देगा। लेकिन अगर आप एंटीटसिव यूज़ करते हैं जो कि सेंट्रल डिप्रेसर है, तो आपके कफ को वो जब बच्चा जो है एक तरह से खांस रहा है स्पूटम को बाहर निकालने के लिए, उसी को आप रोक दोगे तो कभी कभी वो म्यूकस लंग में जाके एस्पिरेट भी कर सकता है। दूसरे क्लोरफेनेरमिन जैसे है, वो आपकी नेज़ल पूरी ट्रैक को वो ड्राई कर देता है और म्यूकस को और थिक कर देता है। गोमेफेंसिन जो है वो म्यूकस को तोड़ता है, तो दोनों एक दूसरे को निलिफाई कर देते हैं और एक नुकसान ही पहुंचाते हैं। क्लोरफेनेरमिन विद कोडीन, क्लोरफेनेरमिन विद डेक्सामेथॉर्फोन जो कि सेंट्रल डिप्रेसेंट है, क्लोरफेनेरमिन विद फिनाइलेफ्रिन विद एम्ब्रोक्सोल विद पैरास्टामोल, क्लोरफेनेरमिन विद सिट्रिजिन विद पैरास्टामोल, डेक्सामेथॉर्फोन विद सिट्रिजिन विद पैरास्टामोल। सो ऑल दी ड्रग कॉम्बिनेशन आर बैंड इन इंडिया, और आपको बता रहा हूँ 2023 में बैन हुए हैं। लेकिन अभी भी सैडली ये कहना पड़ रहा है कि अभी भी जो मध्य प्रदेश में 25 बच्चों की डेथ हुई है, वो भी एक ड्रग कॉम्बिनेशन था, इरेशनली यूज़ किया गया।
That is the biggest maniac we have been facing. OTC drugs should not be given unless a doctor prescription are there. In generally, we don't recommend drug syrups below the age of 4 years because these coughs are usually virals. They subside by own self, and homemade remedies can cure them. And if at all you want to give, there are medicines which can be given, but it has to be seen that there is no contamination.
India supplies about 20% of all generic drugs, cheaper versions of brand name medicines widely prescribed around the world. The country is the leading global supplier of vaccines, meeting more than half of Africa's generic drug needs and 40% of the generic drug demand in the United States. In financial year 2024, India's pharmaceutical exports were valued at approximately $30.5 billion, reflecting a 9.4 year-on-year growth. Very often, we focus on India's pharma industry's swift ascent, taking pride in how we are supplying medicines to over 200 countries, including highly regulated markets such as the USA, UK, Europe, Japan and Australia. But incidents of the kind we have seen in Madhya Pradesh, where 24 children have died due to consuming these toxic medicines, is actually something that has happened outside of India as well. India-made cough syrups have caused deaths in 2022 in Gambia. The manufacturer here, Maiden Pharma, a company that was eventually blacklisted and then removed from the blacklist. 70 children in the Gambia died tragically from acute kidney injury after consuming contaminated cough syrups. An allegation made by the World Health Organization that India and the company in question never really accepted.
A robust recall policy is crucial in preventing tragedies and protecting public health. The key elements include clear guidelines and procedures. Establish a well-defined recall procedures, ensuring prompt action in case of quality issues or safety concerns.
The cough syrup, DOK-1 Max, was manufactured by the Indian company Marion Biotech and imported by Curamax Medical in Uzbekistan between 2022 and 2023. At least 68 children died in Uzbekistan after consuming the contaminated medicine.
India has such a high reputation, particularly its generics, and are depended upon by the best hospitals, the best institutions in the world. But that is because auditing is done separately and independently by those countries. Here, nothing of this kind happens. It just, yes, there will be for export, there will be a little check if the importing country insists on it. If there is no insistence on it, then the same thing will go out. However, if it were done with a joint kind of an inspection, there would be a little more check than is there today. India has done exceedingly well, and we should be proud of that. But we should not minimize the problems that have been created because of small-scale manufacturers who, yes, they have a place to work, they must be allowed to flourish, and they must be allowed to earn money. The country will only grow and develop with that, but not at the cost of human life.
In the 18th century, India already had its own thriving tradition of local medicines. But as colonial trade expanded, imported drugs began to dominate, winning over the Bengali middle class and enjoying government support, both before and after independence. Everything then changed in 1970. India's new Patents Act allowed protection only for the process of making a drug, not the final product. That single reform opened the door for Indian companies to legally reverse engineer costly branded medicines and produce affordable generics. Prime Minister Indira Gandhi pushed for the change, accusing Western pharma giants of using patent laws to keep drug prices high. Her goal was clear: end foreign monopolies, strengthen local manufacturing, and make medicines accessible to everyone. And it worked. Within years, production and exports surged. Indian pharma companies found global success, driven by low-cost manufacturing and skilled labor. Even when stricter patent laws returned in the year 2005, they stayed competitive by focusing on off-patent drugs and efficient production. From local remedies to global reach, India's pharmaceutical revolution began with one bold decision to put affordable medicine within everyone's reach. For years, questions have been raised about the quality and safety of some of these generic medicines made in our country. One reason, India's regulatory standards don't always match those of other nations. Back in 2014, India's top drug regulator made a stark admission. He said, if the country were to fully adopt US manufacturing standards, most of its drug factories would have to shut down.
It is constitutionally possible. The time is now. USA faced it 90 years ago and set up the FDA, which is the central authority to administer drugs throughout the country. We do not have that central authority. Food has that authority. Taxation has that authority, but it does not percolate to drugs, which are even more important, because things like solvents and all are dangerous. They are nothing but poison. Those children died because they were administered poison. Second is, I would say that gas chromatography, which is a test which tells you exactly whether the contamination in that solvent is there or not. Fortunately, the Drug Controller General India has apparently set up a website, ONDLS or something it is called, where the states have to upload data and you can look at that. But I don't think that that website is as functional as it ought to be. They can use that very website to say, in the state of Gujarat, how many licenses have been given?
Behind the scenes, India's drug regulation system struggles to keep up with its booming industry. State-run labs, the first line of defense for testing a drug's quality, are often underfunded, understaffed, and poorly equipped. The problem doesn't end there. India has few inspectors to monitor its vast pharmaceutical network. The National Drug Regulator has barely 2,000 officials to oversee more than 10,000 factories and nearly 1 million pharmacies across the country.
The shortage of manpower and infrastructure is a significant concern. It can lead to compromised quality, increased risk of drug shortage. Now, to minimize this, investing in training and capacity building. You have to invest a lot of money into the enhanced skills and knowledge of existing personnel and recruit additional staff if required. Modernize facilities and equipment to support efficient and competent manufacturing practices.
India's drug regulation functions under the Drugs and Cosmetics Act 1940 and Rules 1945 through a dual control structure. The Central Drugs Control Organization, which is the CDSCO, led by the Drugs Controller General of India, which is the DCGI, manages the central licensing, new drug approvals, and policy formulation. The state drug controllers in all states oversee manufacturing and sales, licenses, inspections, and enforcement.
The post of inspectors for drug regulation has to be normative. It cannot be marzi, koi hai, nahi hai, this sort of thing. It has to be that if you have X number of units, 100 units, you need an inspector. And he has to be mandated to put up what he found, how many passed and how many failed. Names need not be put up, but at least there will be a record. And it can be done just by random sampling. It doesn't have to be done one by one. Random sampling, all these people will immediately pull up their socks. Unless you have a national drug authority, you will not have one standard, you will not have one regulation being administered in a uniform way. We would be dependent only on what each state wishes to do, wants to do, and unfortunately they are putting trade above public health. This is so unfortunate. It is just scandalous.
Key legal provisions define drug quality standards, prohibit misbranding and adulteration, and impose strict penalties for violations. Schedule M of the rules outlines good manufacturing practices, prescribing norms for premises, equipment, hygiene, documentation, and quality assurance. Compliance with Schedule M is mandatory to ensure that all drugs in India meet required standards of safety, efficacy and quality.